just feet away. The sleeping arrangements came up in a divorce hearing today between the 16-year-old suspect's parents. His mother revealed that the 16-year-old is under psychiatric care.
Can I speak to has a psychiatrist appointment on December 1st.
She sat impassively as her ex-husband's attorney spoke about the cruise. Anna Kepner's 16-year-old stepbrother, who is now under suspicion in her death, was said to be obsessed with her.
She was scared of him because he always carried around a big knife.
We did learn that 16-year-old stepbrother was taken to the hospital after the cruise for undisclosed reasons. He is now living with a relative on his mom's side of the family as the FBI investigation continues.
Stephen Weston says his son Joshua, who was dating Anna, witnessed a disturbing incident during a FaceTime call.
He saw her stepbrother come in the room when she was sleeping and get on top of her.
Because the cruise was in international waters, that the young child, the 16-year-old, was allowed to drink. The teenagers were given their own room. A lot of circumstances that showed that the mother in this case was not exercising appropriate supervision over this child.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear thoughts build up until I can't breathe. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear.
Brian, this was a mystery, and it seems to be getting pretty dark all of a sudden.
The truth needs to come out. There were signs before this.
Yes, they most certainly were. According to Anna's step-grandfather, Chris Donahue, he said, I don't know why Anna was staying in a room with her stepbrother. And that is what he's told Fox News Digital on Wednesday. He said that he learned about the arrangement from a news article.
She was sharing a room like this one with her 14-year-old brother and the 16-year-old stepbrother. There was a queen-sized bed. That's where Anna slept, and bunk beds for the two boys.
Well, I have an idea why Anna was staying in a room with a stepbrother. I think there are two sides to that, and I'll discuss that in detail in the next video. It has to do with what her biological father does for a living. I'll be revealing that in the next video, but also, to some extent, the type of person Chantal, the 16-year-old suspect's biological mother, the sort of person she was to allow this to happen. He goes on to say, all I know is that she went on that boat and she never came back. You don't go 0 to 100, but we weren't on the boat. Everyone is heartbroken. There are questions I don't think we'll ever know. Now, I do think we will know. We already know so much, and the CCTV is going to make things real simple, real fast. But before we get to that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. If you're finding this analysis worthwhile, please do hit the thanks button. And let's get started.
He saw her stepbrother come in the room when she was sleeping and get on top of her.
So you see, there were signs. And not only that,
Joshua warned Anna's family what had happened.
He says, Dad, I tried to tell the parents that this was happening, and they didn't want to believe me.
It may not have been a case that they didn't believe him, but they simply didn't really care, or that they weren't really paying enough attention. The 53-year-old said that he hasn't seen Anna, this is now the grandfather, the step-grandfather, hasn't seen Anna regularly since her mother and father grew estranged in 2023. You must remember, it doesn't look like they actually got divorced. And I might be missing something here, but I'll get back to this in a moment. Because right now, the fate of the 16-year-old is hanging in the balance. The ship's CCTV is either going to exculpate passengers or inculpate one of them. There's no escape. Kepner's stepmother, Chantal Hudson, revealed in an emergency motion filed in court on Monday that the FBI is weighing whether or not to criminally charge a young relative described only as a minor.
When the boy returned, he slept in his bunk, not realizing Anna's naked body had been stuffed under her bed just feet away.
Now, that is something that I basically called before it actually was confirmed, that there's likely alcohol that is part of this. But not only that, sex as well. The fact that her body was naked when it was disposed of, And also, there seems to be, it's almost inevitable that alcohol is going to be a factor here, a factor that likely affected at least one person's, not only his inhibitions, but judgment. And that's not all. There's been a new emergency motion filed by Hudson's ex-husband Thomas. And this is really crazy. The fact that the 16-year-old was actually briefly taken into custody and is officially a suspect, but then was released after being in custody. Now, probably he was taken into custody to get DNA samples and perhaps get a statement from him. And I think in the meantime, they're reviewing that CCTV footage to see whether they have a case against him at the end of the day, to see whether they've got specific evidence. I think they have reason to suspect him. He seems to be the obvious suspect, but do they have any direct evidence? And I think that CCTV and possibly also the information coming off his phone, the photos that were taken, etc., even his social media. Now, the FBI, which took over the investigation because Kepner died in international waters, is reportedly reviewing hours of surveillance footage from the cruise prior to the high school senior's death, and that is probably going to take some time to get through. Investigators have also recovered video from the vessel that shows Kepner with the suspect, the outlet reported. And so it's going to be interesting to see what that video shows. Are they engaging romantically? Are they arguing? What's going on? Thomas argues that the lack of involvement in his children's lives has had a negative impact on them. And I think he's talking about not necessarily his lack of involvement, but another person's lack of involvement. Think about the lack of involvement during this cruise when there needed to be more supervision. The youngest child is at immediate risk of abandonment or neglect in the care of the respondent. And so these are the concerns of the father. And that's really the overarching theme here, is that you have these young people in the situation, and were they ultimately neglected? And is there some kind of negligence on the part of their custodians, on the part of their guardians? And so a real question that arises here is, to what extent is the responsibility for what happened that of the adults, and to what extent is it the responsibility of the perpetrator, and additional to that, to what extent is it a kind of a joint responsibility? Now, if these kids were allowed to drink alcohol unsupervised and sleep in the same room unsupervised, one can only ask,
what did you think was going to happen?
You must remember, in an ordinary scenario, these kids wouldn't be able to go on a cruise to begin with. So they are actually brought into the situation by the adults in the story. They're paying for the trip. They're managing the whole situation. By the same token, these kids are also brought together in lieu of the adult relationships that are overarching the minors' relationships. And so that's another aspect where you would think that the parents would need to play some sort of supervisory role. And instead of them doing that, what are the parents doing? And another thing is, do the minors then take their cues from what the parents are doing? And all of this makes one wonder, could someone else be liable for Anna's murder besides the person who killed her? I also want you to look at point number 6 in this legal filing. The respondent took the remaining minor children on a cruise with a stepchild of her paramour. Now, unless I'm missing something, Anna's father and the 16-year-old suspect's mother were in a relationship, but they weren't married. I mean, the father's surname is Kepner, the mother is Hudson. And is Chantal still married? Is she not divorced yet from her husband? And that appears to be the case. That's why there are these court battles going on. And this was the stress and the anxiety and the loaded nature in which this relationship was being conducted. So what sort of moral message was this sending to the youngsters of the story? Not only the romantic goings-on between their respective parents, but also the enmity, the animosity going on with the exes. And that does seem to have led to violence of some sort. That's already been mentioned as well. And also remember, within all of this, Anna was a Christian. Was her step-sibling a Christian as well? What was Anna's attitude towards alcohol consumption and also sex before marriage? I guess time will tell. Well, I'm not going to take it further than that. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.